Hello students, welcome back into another session of CS07 data structure concepts using programming in C. As all of you know that we are discussing about unit number 3, which consists of elementary data structure, and where we have completed with two most important topics, that is called a stack and queue, using a one-dimensional array. As previously discussed in this particular chapter, we have to discuss queue in format of three different ways, that is queue, circular queue and double-ended queue. So now it's time to go for the discussion of circular queue. So let's start with the same. As you can see onto the screen, into the circular queue we have to discuss the concept itself in three different parts, that is the function to insert an element into the circular queue, function to delete element from the circular queue, and circular queue implementation with the help of array. So these are the topic which we have to consider. So let's start with the first thing, that is what is circular queue. Now name itself shows the functionality of this particular topic. As the title starts with circular, what is the meaning of circular? Circular means round. Whenever queue arranged in format of round, that thing is called as circular queue. That means, suppose we are playing a game into the ground and one circle has been made where the ball has passed from first person to the last person. Ultimately, once the ball reached to the last person, again if I repeat the passing of ball, the ball is going to be passed at the first person. That means last person passed the ball to the first person, and entire structure shows as a circular. And whenever we are arranging the elements in such a way where the information is arranged from first to last and last again reference to the first, that structure, that elementary data structure is called as circular queue. Now this circular queue is actually the standard queue data structure which rebuffers the problem for each double-ended queue operation. To solve this standard problem, we are joining the first and rear element of the circular queue with each other. That makes a circular queue. As we know that basically there are two operations into the queue. That two operations are operation for inserting the value and deleting the values. These are the two basic operations which we have to perform. Now for inserting and deleting the values, component which we are using is called as front and rear. So as far as the previous program is concerned, we are increasing the rear by 1, which ultimately add the new number into the queue, while increasing the front by 1, it deletes the value from the queue. So the same component which we can also use into the circular queue design. The data structure of circular queue looks like this. As you can see onto the screen, there is a one circle where the first element 23 is stored on the location number 0. Obviously it's a location of one-dimensional array. Whenever we are increasing rear by 1, it add the new value on the first location, that is 12. This is just an example. You can put any element. Then again by increasing the rear by 1, new value I have added called 45 on second location, 23 on third location. By increasing the rear Then again I am inserting 47 on the fourth location. Then again I am adding 50 on a fifth location by increasing the rear. Again I increase the rear, newer value is going to be stored on my sixth location. Then if my total area size is 8, then the location number 7 is the last one. Suppose I store 0 over here, then this location number 7, or we can say after the location number 7, front and rear becomes same. So whenever the front and rear became same, it should continue watching the queue, makes this queue as a circular queue. Now as far as this data structure is concerned and the total size which is defined by the programmer, now there is no chance of adding any other new number as the location gets over. So what happened? If I increase front by 1, then the first value which will be deleted from the entire circular queue is 23, then 12, then 45, then 23, then 47, then 50, then so on, and ultimately again if front and rear becomes 0, that means the entire circular queue is empty. I can increase the rear by 1 for adding the new number. Yes, this is almost similar like the simple queue, but the thing is what, in a simple queue, the data structure is not in a circular manner. All the elements are queue up one by one, where the last element is not referenced with the first element. So this is just a single difference between this simple queue and the circular queue. Now, algorithm for creating the simple circular queue is like this. Where circular queue consists of, that means the algorithm of circular queue consists of 7 different steps, where step number 1 is obviously the step of initializing the algorithm, and step number 7 is terminating the algorithm. So these are the two very basic steps. We will not discuss more about that. Step number 2 is create a node with following fields to store the information and the address of next node. Structured node begins into the information pointer to structure node called next node. That means in this particular program, what happens, our node is created. One node means it's a technical word, it's a one type of physical location. One type of logical location which consists of two things. One is the address of next node and the part called information, where the data is going to be stored. Then step number 3 is what? Create a class called CList, where member variable of pointer to structure node called root, previous, next and other member function for arranging all the elements into the circular queue. Then after creating that particular function, by just calling that function, we can display circular queue and their elements onto the screen. It doesn't mean whenever we run the program, you will see a one circle onto the screen where all the informations get displayed in circular manner. Instead of that, we can find that the last element is referencing to the first element. Now let's see the logical code for the same. program for the same is mentioned over there. Let's run the code and check whether it is working properly or not. This is the code. Whenever we visit this code, it looks almost similar like our simple simple queue. Let's run the code. As you can see that there are no syntactical errors, we can execute it. Let's select the option number 1, which inserts some value. My first value is 2, then my next value is 0, then the third value is say for example 5, then my fourth value is suppose 9, and my last value is suppose 8. Now still suppose I want to add a newer value. What it displays? Overflow, because the size of my circular queue is 5. So this is the sequence. First is 2, then 0, then 5, then 9, and then 8. So in this sequence, 8 is referencing to the value called 2. Clear? Again I am repeating my words. In this data structure, the last value reference to the first value, that is called as 2. That means 8 reference to the value called 2. That's why this particular data structure is called as a circular queue data structure. Now let's try to do one thing. Suppose I am selecting operation number 2, which is the operation for deleting the value. Which element is going to be deleted? Same like a simple queue, the first element which has been arrived, that is 2. Again suppose I wish to delete, then it deletes 0, then 8, then 9, then 8, sorry, the last one by mistake I speak that, but the last one is 8, and it shows that queue is empty. And still suppose I want to delete the queue, it shows the message that underflow and queue is empty. Suppose I am performing only the display function. Let me add the 3 values, and suppose I am selecting option number 3. It displays the 3 values which I have inserted, that is 2, 8 and 4, where 2 is the first value, 4 is the last value, 4 reference to the first value called 2. And suppose I select option number 4, then and then program get terminated. So this is the beauty of this particular code. Let's see this code for better visibility over the notepad. This is the program where initially I have started with declaring the 2 necessary library functions, that is stdio.h and console input output.h. Then there is a hash defined size 5 for fixing the size of my array. By default it accepts only the 5 values. Then I have set the component of the queue, that is called as front and rear, at the -1 position by increasing it with 1. By default it set as a 0, and the first address of the array is always 0, that we have learned in our previous lectures. Now then there is a third variable. All these are the global variable. Let me clear this thing. Integer queue of size, it is ultimately a one-dimensional array which declares the queue of 5 size. Then there are 3 functions, or we can say the function prototypes. That functions are insert, delete and print. Insert is for inserting the values into the circular queue, delete is for deleting the value into the circular queue, and this print is for displaying the value into the circular queue. All these 3 functions are made up of function without argument, without return value, because there are no parameters that we have passed in this bracket. Even it contains the return type called void. So the UDF which we have declared is function without argument, without return value. Then there is a void main statement. Into the void main statement, this entire program is a menu driven program, So user need to enter their choice for performing the specific operation. So into the do statement, there is an CLR SCR function, and inside the CLR SCR function, just a minute. Inside the CLR SCR function, we have started designing the menu. So inside the printf statement, the first line of code is 1 for inserting the values, 2 for deleting the values, 3 is for displaying the value, and 4 is for exiting from the program. So the choice has been accepted by the scanf statement, that is called as scanf %d and %choice. The given choice has been passed into the switch statement for selecting the specific case. In switch statement, case number 1 is for inserting and displaying the value. Case number 2 is for deleting and displaying the value. Case number 3 is for only displaying the value, and case number 4 shows or we can say terminate the program whenever user selects the operation number 4. This program continues still user has not selected option number 4. So let's start. Suppose here I have selected choice number 1. Choice number 1 is for insert. This switch statement selects the case number 1. Case number 1 is insert. So function call has been done, and the program's transfer where the insert function is created. So this is the insert function. It comes over here and perform all the logical operation which we have written in this opening and closing bracket. In this opening and closing bracket, there is a local variable called number, and the printf message is there, that is printf enter the number, scanf %d and %number. This is the element which user can enter. Say for example, first element which I want to insert into the circular queue is 2. So 2 is going to be stored inside the variable called number. But before that, he checks for one exception by using this condition: if front double equals to 0 and rear is equals to size minus 1. That means if front is set as a 0 and rear is equals to the last address of the array, then it shows that queue is overflow. That means queue is full, queue is not able to accept any new value. But if this condition is false, that means we have a space for storing the values into the circular queue, then obviously this condition becomes false. It goes, that means the control goes inside the else part of the insert function. So what happens into the else part? In else part, again it checks a one condition. If if rear double equals to front minus 1. So what this condition says, say for example, for the first time rear is equals to minus 1, front equals to already set as a minus 1. So it checks that if minus 1 double equals to minus 2 or not. So obviously this condition becomes false, and this condition is for checking an overflow in terms of as the last element is referencing to the first element. So again, for the first value or the fourth value, this condition becomes false. program goes into the else part. There is again a third condition. That third condition checks that whether my front value is -1. So yes, the value of front is -1. So front becomes 0. That means front is set as a first location of array which is empty, and we can store the value inside that particular location. Then rear equals to 0 and q of rear is equals to number. That means it stores the first number which I have entered, that is 2, as far as our discussion is concerned. Yes, over here 2 I have stored. That 2 is going to be stored in a first location of a circular queue. Then again program repeats. Program becomes continue. Program again ask for the selection of user's choice. Again user has entered the choice number 1, which is choice called inserting the value. Now user is inserting the value called 5, which is the second value of circular queue. All this condition becomes false. And even into the else part, as the value of front is not -1 now, it is 0. So even this condition becomes false. So that means from the second element of circular queue, only and only this else part repeats till the last value. That means in the else part again it checks one thing, whether the rear is equals to the total size or not. If it is less than the total size, that means from the second and the second last value, this condition becomes false. Only this else part repeats every time rear increase by 1, a new value is going to be stored. Let me show you over here. For this 5, only this portion of program will work. Then suppose I am going for 0. This is my third value. Only the last part of else will work. That means this part. Then suppose I am going for 1. That is the fourth value. Again the last part only works. That means this part. And suppose now I am storing the last value. This is the fifth value. So at that particular time, no doubt after storing the value called 5, the value called 9 as a last value, program repeats. But again suppose user select option number 1, then this condition becomes true. That means rear is equals to front -1, and it shows the value is overflow. That means stack is full and no more value we can insert into the queue. Now suppose selects option number 2, that is an option for deleting the values. Delete function has been called. Into the delete function, obviously we have to check for the exception of underflow, and the condition of underflow true when front is equals to -1. If this condition is false, then program continues by displaying the first element of the queue which is going to be deleted. As per my input, the value which is going to be deleted is 2. So 2 will be displayed over the screen. Then it checks whether this is the last number as per the queue. So obviously this is not the last number. That means this condition becomes false. Program goes into the else and it checks whether the front is -1. So obviously front is not -1. It increases the front by 1. Ultimately it deletes 2 from the list, then 5 from the list, then 0 from the list, then 1 from the list, then 9 from the list. And at that particular time, this front and rear becomes same. Both became same. and front again set as a -1 and rear is again set as a -1. This is the life cycle of circular queue. As the value get inserted, the counting of location becomes known for the program, that one location is occupied, second location is occupied, third location is occupied, fourth location is occupied, fifth location is occupied. Now there is no place for storing the new number, so that has been done by this condition. Now instead of this, suppose user select the display, then simply it calls for the case number 3. Case number 3 calls only the print function. Print function, after checking the queue that queue is not empty, something should be there to display. So if queue is empty, then nothing is going to be displayed. So this condition checks for that. Then it checks that rear is greater than or equals to front or not. That means value which is stored inside the array is less than the total size or not. If that's so, then it displays the value using this condition. If queue is full, then this particular condition becomes false, and only this else part will display the element from the queue. No doubt this particular program is little bit difficult to digest, but listen this particular lecture twice in a day and try to digest line by line. So write down program for the general purpose. The definition for the program is write a program to implement circular queue. Write a program to implement circular queue. Just pause the video and write down the selected logical lines. Just pause the video and write down the selected logical lines. Again pause the video and write down this selected line of code. Again pause the video and write down this selected line of code. Again pause the video and write down this did function properly. Again pause the video and write out this display function properly. I hope all of you have written the entire program. You can pause the video and write down the code. Now, as far as the syllabus is concerned, circular queue we have to discuss up to this extent. The last type of queue and the last topic of unit number 3 is double-ended queue, which is called as DQ, which is not that much important into the exam because this is very complicated concept to understand as compared to the simple queue and the circular queue. Even circular queue is little bit difficult to digest, but circular queue, or you can say the simple queue, is very important for the university examination. So I request all the students to go through each and every session properly, listen every word seriously, and try to digest everything one by one. So in next lecture we will go for double-ended queue with theory, algorithm and their practical. So till that, thank you very much students for listening me, and have a nice day.